Hi, welcome. This video is part of the Springville Museum of Art's Artist to Artist program, and one of our educators, Becca, has sat down to do an interview with professional artists Steve and Tonya Vistaunet. So enjoy this great interview, and thanks to Pops and Reimagine Teaching for supporting this program, and enjoy. Thank you.
How did you both become an artist? Or why did you choose to become an artist?
Art.
Like, how did that interest begin?
This is one of those things where I have always just been attracted to art. I've just always loved it. As a little kid, in fact, I say in my little bio, my favorite thing to do as an 8-year-old, or like as a 12-year-old boy, was to sit at my desk, draw, and listen to records. And my favorite thing to do as an adult right now is to draw, sit at my desk, and listen to records. Nothing has changed. It's just in me. I've just always been attracted to art and to color and to creation. It's just kind of always been there.
Yes,
awesome.
And it's always been there for me. I've always made lots of crafts. When I was little, I remember making like pom-pom animals and learned to sew by sewing my own pillows, and was always painting stuff. I used to paint rocks, like rock animals. And just a couple of years ago, Steve and I painted rocks for Valentine's Day and hid them all over Provo City. So
I love
it
that.
doesn't stop.
No,
I think if it's in you, you have to do something.
Yeah.
I don't know that it was a conscious decision to be an artist. It's just in there.
Just kind of happened. That's awesome.
So create. We have to be doing something, and so art's a great way.
No, that's so true. Like, that need to create is sometimes innate. Sometimes it develops over time. So I guess off of that, like, what inspires you the most? So you have this creativity. What is the thing that inspires you to keep going, keep creating?
You know what inspires me the most is people. Is just people, just meeting people and seeing what they're up to and what they're doing. Everybody's got their little iPhone, and I've got my Instagram feed, but I follow a lot of artists and creatives, and it just inspires me every day. I'm thumbing through, and it's just like, oh my gosh, look what they just did, and look what they just did. It makes me want to do it. It's like, I need to do this too. If they're doing cool stuff, I need to be doing cool stuff. So yeah, people really inspire me. When I see that they're doing cool things, I don't want to be left out. I want to do cool stuff too.
I'm inspired by people and watching. And sometimes I feel a little bit uneasy. Just turn your whole phone off. Sorry. Thinking I'm not good enough, or I'm not doing what they're doing, or maybe I need to do what that person's doing and create it. But you gotta just not listen to that voice and just do your own thing. But I am inspired by seeing what other people make. It makes me want to make.
That's great. So kind of just people, and I love that. That's awesome. And like seeing what other people are doing. That's a great, I don't know. I think that's what a lot of artists seek inspiration from. Could be nature, but I think a lot of it, because it's just so ingrained in us. It's just like people, we're surrounded by people. We live in family groupings and things like that. So I think that's wonderful.
Nature for sure.
Yeah, funny you say nature. Tonya loves clouds, and especially sunsets.
I do.
And we've been in the car a number of times where we're driving along, and all of a sudden she'll pull over. I'm like, must be a beautiful, and of course it's a beautiful sunset. So she pulls over, gets out of the car, and starts taking pictures. And I love that she does that, because most cars are just driving by, and I think it's cool to actually appreciate nature so much that she'll pull over and just stop and like, oh, look at that. It's pretty great.
Well,
especially in Utah.
In Utah for sure. But I found when I'm stuck creatively and don't know what to do or create, sometimes I do have to get in the mountains. And one of my favorite things is to get in water. So I'll go find a side of the river to walk in or something. It's too cold in the winter time, but I love walking on the beach or walking on the side of the river, something like that. That, I guess it's a different part of my brain that gets jump started by doing something like that. Hiking, whatever. I'm not a hiker, but I do like getting out.
Walking.
Walking.
Yeah. I think that's another great thing. So people, and then also like being in nature. And that's interesting that you talk about when you're in the water or you're walking or doing something or stopping and just looking. Like, I think that's a wonderful source of like inspiration too. And something we don't always think about is sometimes you have to go into nature and you have to like, you can be inspired by it, but it's really being in nature that helps with that. So that's amazing.
Yes, you have to experience it firsthand. And again, she'll take pictures of the sunsets. It's never the same. You know, anyone who's seen a sunset, it's like, why isn't my picture as good as because our eyes see way better than cameras see. So yeah, you got to experience it.
Yeah, I love that. So with your different mediums, do you find that like sometimes they're more organic and sometimes they're more like structured? Like, how do you think that you chose your specific like medium or style of creating art? Is that just another thing that evolved over time?
Yeah, what's funny is we like to do stuff fast. And so the way we create our art, and again, Tonya, so the way we collaborate, by the way, just so people are aware, I'm kind of if you look at comic books, I'm kind of the penciler. I'll kind of pencil and kind of illustrate and draw the ideas in. And then she's the inker and the colorist. So she kind of brings it to life. So we're a team that way, but we both like to move pretty quickly. And so I like to just sit down and just draw and just bang it out. And then that's why Tonya uses acrylics, because they dry so fast.
And I can get on to the next thing. So we do a lot of that. I also like to make a mess. So I paint a lot of heart paintings where I make a big mess and then I sand stuff down and do that. I like to try all sorts of mediums. I learned to sew when I was young, and I've done a lot with that. I want to paint on fabric. We like to try stuff out. I think what most people recognize now is the art that we do together. But we both have been makers for our whole lives.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I like all kinds of mediums, but we mostly work in acrylics and energetic. We like really a lot of energy in our work.
That's great. Do you feel like that kind of matches your personalities just outside of art? Do you feel like that's kind of or is it like totally different?
No, it's totally us. And again, this is something, and again, for the high school kids, when I was in high school, I was always scared to take a drawing class because I thought I had to be able to draw like Michelangelo or be able to paint like Leonardo da Vinci. And that's just not true, my friends. The important thing is to let what is in you out. And finally, it wasn't until college that one of my college art professors said, "Stop, Steve. The stuff you do naturally is really cool. Stop trying to be somebody else and do what you do." And from that day forth, I have done what I do, and it's real. And so, yeah, the stuff you see that we do, it's who we are. It's kind of a visual representation of who Steve and Tonya are as people. So I love that you said that, because it's so true.
Well, and I actually have never felt like I can draw. I'm not a good drawer, but I'm not worried about it. It's the process of getting to an end spot, which is one reason why we work well together. But another thing is I'm not worried about this terrible drawing because it's probably going to evolve into something else. I think for a long time I was scared because I felt like I needed to learn how to do portraits. I can't do that. That's just not in my wheelhouse at all. And so I think you just need to keep experimenting, keep doing what you want, and kind of stick with something long enough to know if that is something you should continue learning or not. I know a lot of people who learn to draw, and you can learn at any time. But I think it's just not being scared, not being nervous, just try stuff.
It kind of goes back to the head versus the heart. And a lot of artists and a lot of people starting art are stuck up here in their head. They're thinking way too hard. They're thinking, well, what if people don't like this? And what's selling? And what are other people doing that people like? And I need to do something like that. Stop this instant. Get out of your head and get into your heart and do whatever the heck you want to do. Because what's in your heart, if you do it, it'll be the most real thing you do. I teach 2D design at UVU. And one of my first assignments is to the students is do something. And they're like, what do you mean do something? I'm like, create something, do anything you want to do. It should be completely self-indulgent. It could be completely selfish. You're not doing it for me. You're not doing it for your mom. You're doing it for you. And those are always the best projects of the whole semester because they're doing it from their heart. They're doing exactly what they want to do. So yeah, my word of advice to you, get out of your head, stop thinking about it so much, and just start creating. You'll be amazed at the beautiful things you do.
Now that is also not to say don't take classes. Like, I think you should take classes.
Oh, yeah.
I think you should learn some basic skills and maybe learn about paints and learn about different products and learn about the right way to do something, and then break the rules when you create. But it is nice to have a background in how things work and then do what you want to do. So
yeah, I think that's great. That kind of led into the next question about different tips and tricks. And I think we went over some great ones. Are there any other, like for your medium and style, like what are your favorite techniques for working with acrylic and kind of pencil? Like what are your kind of tricks of the trade?
You know what, I will say this. In fact, I have a prop right here. I have a bunch of props right here. These are I have literally hundreds of sketchbooks, but here's some just in my drawer right there. And so my tricks of the trade is to take notes on life. So anywhere I go, I have my little notebook with me and I'm constantly drawing and taking notes and ideas. And it's so important just to constantly be drawing and sketching. And that may be nothing, but I may look back and I say, well, I love kind of what I did with the hair. That was kind of cool. Maybe I'll try that in the painting. Or, you know, I mean, there are, you know, I don't even know what that means, but apparently someone said, I've always been too much. So I don't know, but sketchbooks
or journals,
however you want to do it. You can write, you can draw, but we don't remember everything. And so jotting it down or writing it down or drawing it down is a huge trick that I use because we're looking for paintings, and I will literally go back to my sketchbooks and dig through them and be like, oh, there's an idea. That's not a bad idea. So that's one trick.
I'll tell you one that I do a lot. I have a pad of paper by my bed, and my brain has a hard time turning off. And so I actually have notebooks all over, and I don't really draw ideas. I write a lot of ideas or things or little sketches of something. But this notepad by my bed, I often will wake up in the middle of the night, grab the pen that's there and write in the dark. So sometimes in the morning I can read it and sometimes I can't, but a lot of times it will trigger a thought or a memory. So I can't say enough about the importance of keeping a sketchbook or an idea journal, or somewhere you could, even on your phone, I guess you could do that, just somewhere you're writing notes, because you'll forget. And it's a great way to get ideas that you've already had.
Well, yeah, and that's a huge thing, because it's not like every day at 1:45 is when I'm inspired. That's just not true. It could be at 3:30 in the morning. It could be at 6:30 at night during dinner. It could be when I'm in the shower. But the point is, I will not remember those things. So if I get in the habit of writing it down, like, oh my gosh, that's a cool idea. If I think I'll remember that, I will not remember it. But if I jot it down, chances are good I'll see that again, and then I may be able to turn that into something. So writing it down,
or taking a picture, or
anything to make you remember it.
Yeah, that's why I take lots of sunset pictures, or even at museums sometimes notice what's there, draw something, or your memories of it, whatever, just something that will trigger a thought. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great kind of conceptual representation of how to get things from paper onto like work of art that you're doing. So I love that. Working with acrylics, you said, so you mostly do acrylics, and then you also do you do any other, like besides acrylic, have you tried other
yeah, well,
we do wall murals too, and that's typically with house paint, which is like house enamel.
In fact, here's a good time to show you what we do. So I've put a few little things that I can put in the background so you can see what kind of art we do. Okay. So for example, this Well, here,
This is part of a big mural. You can
there.
see.
Oh, cool.
So now you can see that.
Can you see the cupcakes in that? This wall is like 40 feet long, wide by
huge.
12 feet tall. And it was for a bakery. And so that's all with wall paint. And, oh, let's see, I'm going into the mural.
Yeah, I'm disappearing.
It's all with wall paint. And every color needs at least 2 coats. Some of those colors took like 5 coats. So you do have to be patient. Our style of painting is very opaque. So it's not, there's very strong lines and it's very graphic quality. So we do put a lot of layers of paint on just to get that solid color. I actually, anytime I go to a museum or an art show, I'm always so amazed that people can leave a work of art that to me feels like it's not painted enough, but it's beautiful. And that's why I like going and seeing things. Nobody does it the same way as the next person. And I really love art that has that painterly feel, but that's not us.
No, and
this is us.
That's the thing. You got to figure out what you do. And so we don't do a lot of shading. We don't even do a lot of mixing of colors. We kind of just buy the colors we want. Well, she does.
I mix colors.
I don't do a ton. I'm kind of like, whatever's in the ball is what I'm using.
Yeah. He really likes paint pens. So our kitchen table right now, he's just drawing all over the table. Every time you sit down to eat, he draws on the table. So yeah, we paint on walls. We paint all over our house.
That's one of our current paintings. In fact,
actually, that painting's
in the spring salon right now.
All?
That's all, yeah.
One in, but that one was acrylic paints. Our process is Steve will draw it typically with Sharpie or some kind of pen.
I'll get out again.
And then we put layers and layers of paint, and then I go over it again with a paint pen for all the black lines. So that's not our original drawing. That's after it's all been painted.
Yeah, so just for example, that painting right there. So the idea was all those beautiful colors and shapes and everything represent the world to us. That's kind of how I see the world every day. It's just full of color and excitement, and sometimes it's too much, and sometimes it's just right, but that's what the world represents. And so I will draw that out, usually in a very light Sharpie, like a pink Sharpie, just so you kind of get the outline. Then she does all the painting, and then to finish it off, we take a black paint pen, and she goes over the entire thing again. Every one of those lines has gone over again by Tonya to make it just jump out. So I know that background's crazy, but
we both have
there's some of our
realized. So these are a little different, but we've both realized we both like pop art a lot. And when we discovered that we both had so many similar likes, we realized we need to just do what we want to do. And I've tried painting in muted tones. I've tried doing gray tone paintings or tans, and it's just not me. I always end up throwing color on it. So it's impossible.
We like saturated colors. We like vibrant colors.
And lots of colors. These hearts don't have outlines. Most of these hearts are a dozen layers, and I just keep building them up until they turn out the way we want them.
Yeah, just layer after layer after layer of paint until it looks the way we're envisioning it. So kind of fun. Okay.
And sometimes I sand them down. So there's all sorts of processes you can play with. That's why I think it is important to learn different ways to use different mediums, like oil sticks or pastels or watercolor. Find what you like to do. So just experiment. Oil paint dries too slowly for me. Watercolor is too precise for me. So that's how we kind of settled on acrylics and house paint.
Yeah.
It works for us, and that doesn't mean it will work for you. You find out what works for you, and that's the whole key to art, is find out your process. And we found ours, and it's through experimentation, and it's through making a whole ton of mistakes.
Yeah.
Never be afraid of making mistakes, because that's part of the deal. In fact, most of our ideas are bad ideas, but by pushing those bad ideas, out of the way, all of a sudden a good idea shows up. It's like, oh, this one's going to be good. And so we run with it. So never be afraid of making bad mistakes or making bad, whatever, mistakes at all.
Keep going.
There was a painting we were doing, and and Tanya said, okay, go. And I knew I wasn't in the right mood to draw, but I went ahead and did it anyway. And like a half hour in, I'm like, this is horrible. This is the ugliest tree I think I've ever drawn. And I went ahead and drew it on our giant panel to be a painting. I'm like, this is, Tanya, quick, get the gesso, go over it.
Well, I was like, that is not good.
Oh, yeah,
That's
she walked in,
not
she's
good.
like, ugh. I'm like, I know, it's
So we
really
sanded it
bad.
out, re-gessoed it, started all over. But
So,
don't,
yeah,
don't.
and again,
You're going to make lots of bad paintings.
I knew it was going to be
So-
bad within the first 2 minutes, but I went ahead and did it for 30 minutes, which is like really committed to my horribleness. But it's important to do that. I think it's important to walk down the path so far that you're like, yeah, that's no, this is not right. But guess what? We went over it and she fixed it all up, and I waited till the next day and it turned out awesome. So it's okay to screw up and make mistakes, and that's part of the
walk
deal.
away and then come back to it.
Mhm.
That's important.
Yeah, that's great. I think those, like in all of those kind of examples, there are great things to learn that these young people can learn is kind of step away. If something's bad, just embrace it, but then be like, no, I have to start over.
Yeah.
So I think that's great. I think like you talked about with finding what works with different types of mediums and kind of seeing what is your style. I think that those are all wonderful kind of tricks for people that are kind of learning their own style right now. So that's amazing. Do you all have like times where you find yourself comparing your work to other works? I know it's nice that you guys have both of you, but do you find yourself, because I know that as we're learning our style, sometimes you get really tough on yourself and kind of unforgiving. So what would you say for those people?
I think as human beings, that's our natural tendency, is to compare. It's like, oh, wow, theirs is way better than mine. Why am I even doing this? But that's not a healthy approach to life. And so I've kind of given that up. My whole thing is I'll go walk around, for example, the Springville Museum Spring Salon. And instead of being sad at how good everything is, I'm thrilled for everyone. I'm like, wow, what a community we live in. Look at the art on the wall and what a bunch of talented people live right here in Utah. It's absolutely amazing. I think that's much healthier instead of me walking around going like, well, why am I an artist? What the heck? This is such good stuff. How do I ever have a chance? Nah, it's a horrible way to think, because we do have a chance. We have a painting in the Spring Salon this year. So it's cool.
Can you tell this is an optimist?
Yes, I am an optimist. You answer. You answer now.
I'm maybe a little more, I don't know if I'm a total pessimist, maybe a realist, but I do get stuck sometimes in thinking, what am I doing? This is ridiculous. Or I'll even go to a show and see all the other people in it, and I think, why in the world are we in this show? These guys are all good. And I think you're right. It's human nature to compare, and it's human nature to think someone's doing it better than me. But honestly, I think that's something we're always trying to learn and overcome. And the world needs you. The world needs your voice. And I mean, honestly, in our career, I'm like, maybe we need to paint more mountains. Well, that's not something that I can really, they're brown. A lot of them are brown. That's not my thing.
We painted mountains, but they were not brown.
We've painted some and they're crazy. So I don't know how to tell people don't compare yourself, but I want to tell people don't compare yourself, because it is kind of a constant hardship it's choice. It's a choice not to compare yourself. I guess that's what I'd say, because I think that's a natural tendency of all humans, whatever age you are. I've talked to artists who have been making art for 40 years. This has been their whole career, and they still go into this deep like after shows, this almost depressive state of, I don't know if I'm any good. I can't do this. And I think that's just a human tendency that we just need to realize that we're all individuals.
Right.
And we can both be given the assignment to paint a heart, and they're both going to look totally different. And that's the glory of it all. That's the glory of art making, I think.
Yeah.
But it is hard. I don't know the total. It's just a conscious decision not to be intimidated, I guess.
Well, and
I don't know.
And I go into this, and maybe this is bad, but it's true. I don't go into art saying someday the world will say that Steve and Tonya were the best artists to ever live on earth. No one's going to say that. And that's perfectly fine. I don't expect that, but I want to be in the art parade. I don't need to be the grand poobah at the front leading the whole thing. I don't need to be the grand marshal, but I want to be in that parade. And guess what? We're in the parade, and we're marching along happily. I'm not the clown scooping the poo. I'm in the parade and life is good. And I'm perfectly happy there. And I think that's important. And if you want to be the grand poobah, go for it. But I'm happy just being in the art parade, doing our stuff, being part of the community, and making art that people enjoy, and that more importantly, we enjoy. We make art for ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's great.
We make art for ourselves. Yeah.
I think that's great advice just for kind of people that are, again, just learning their style, learning kind of what it takes for them to continue. And I think that's wonderful. So thank you for that. Kind of to follow up that, do you have a favorite work of art that you've created? Like you just
art?
always think about it. Mm-hmm.
I really like we've done a lot of murals, actually. I love painting murals. I love painting walls.
I'll pull it back up one more time. So
I think this huge mural might be my favorite. Now it changes. So that's probably my favorite right now. Just because I used all bright colors except for on the cakes and cupcakes, and I used pastels, which was a different way to highlight something. You can kind of see it there. That's my current favorite. We have a huge mural in our kitchen. I like our mural work.
Yeah, I do too. And again, this one's actually in the Riverwoods at a place called the Cake Creation Studios. You can actually go see it here in Provo. But it's cool because we'd never done anything that big. Yeah. It was literally 40 feet by 12 feet high and just this giant blank white wall. And it was kind of intimidating. In fact,
it was very intimidating.
Because I always start with such a Sharpie.
And so terrible.
She's like, go draw something. I'm like, I don't know. And so I can draw hearts. So I went up and I just drew a heart. I'm like, okay. And then I outlined the heart, and then I just went and started drawing stuff. But it was intimidating. So sometimes you just have to like either draw a circle or a heart or something to get you started.
And I changed colors in that. I'd paint things certain colors and then play off each other wrong. So there was a lot of changes. Why don't you switch back? Because it makes your faces weird.
It makes us. There we go. All right.
So my favorite are murals. I've got a mural in our kitchen. We've got almost every wall in our house has some kind of weird mural. But we've done them for other businesses, and that's my favorite kind of work is mural work. What's your favorite of ours?
Well, you know what? There's only one painting that we've kept. And that's the very first one we did together.
We have others.
I know, but that one
on purpose.
I would sell those if someone wanted them, but there's one I won't sell. And it's the very first one we did together. Just because we had talked about collaborating for so long, and we had this great idea, and finally we just said, let's do it. We've been talking about it for so long, let's go ahead and try it. And it just turned out so cool, and it just makes me happy. And it's just hanging upstairs in our house, and every time I see it, I'm like, that's what started it all. Yeah. And it turned out cool, and so I love that. It's called The Path.
It's interesting because I look at it now, and there's so many things I would change. There's so many things I would change, but that was that point in our creating together. So it is good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I think all artists, will sit and look at their work and be like, can I have that back? Can I just change a few things? Because it's hard to, when is a piece of artwork done? Who knows? Yeah. At some point you just have to say it's done, whether it is or not. You have to just say you're done.
I actually kind of go, it's dead to me. So I got to stop.
That's so great. That's amazing. I think that's a really cool thing that you've held on to your early work that early work of art, and you kind of can look at it and just remember how far you've come as creators, as collaborators. So I think that's another great thing for young ones to know, is that, you know, sometimes, you know, you'll change your style, but it's sometimes good to see where you came from and like where you started and see the growth, because then that might help alleviate a lot of the comparison and kind of those tendencies that we just fall into. So I think that's wonderful. I think this has been a great interview. I do have like 2 more questions. So one thing we wanted to ask is, you all said that you like pop art. You really like pop art. Do you have a favorite artist that you kind of just, you're like, I love their work so much? Like, do each of you have different ones?
Yeah.
Let's hear a few.
Different. I love Bridget Riley. She does op art, a lot of in the 60s and 70s. I'm really into that 60s and 70s vibe. Bridget Riley's one, a lot of black and white optical art, that type of stuff. I love Peter Max, who did some Beatles album covers. He does a lot of crazy creatures and people and designs. I really like Andy Warhol, and it's not that I like every piece of his work, but I like that at that time he was such a good experimenter. He tried all sorts of different things, and I admire that in any artist that will just say, I don't care if you don't want a painting of a banana, that's what I feel like doing. So I don't know, I really admire artists who try something new. Even if you look in time, different types of art, impressionist, or all the different kinds. The first people, the Bauhaus movement, people who started some of those movements were hugely influential for their time period. And I really like some of those starting artists in certain types of art. So that's, maybe I'm more into pop art, I don't know, but I love it too. It speaks to me. It's the loud colors.
Well, one of my favorites is, in a sense, he's French. The way the French say it is Robert Delaunay. We might say it Robert Delaunay here in America. Either way, his art is fantastic. A lot of abstract stuff, just circles and colors and rhythm and movement, and I really love that stuff. I think he's fantastic. I mean, there's a reason Picasso's Picasso. Again, I don't love everything he ever did, but boy, most of it, I'm a pretty big fan.
Well, I was just going to point that out. When people say, I like Picasso, there's so many different periods. And there's some periods I like and some I really don't like. So it's interesting to look at artists and say, oh, I like Moreau, or I like that. I might not like all of it. I really like Basquiat, who in the 80s was doing graffiti. I love graffiti art and stuff like that, but I don't love all his work. So it's,
Well, music and art are the same thing to me. And so, like, you think about a band, it's like, there's certain bands I love, but I don't love every single song they've ever recorded. There's a few that were like, eh. And same with paintings. There's just some paintings that just won't resonate with me. But overall, as a body of work, there's a lot of artists who just do amazing stuff.
But we were at the Uffizi, which is mostly Renaissance art in Italy, a year ago. And I loved everything. It's absolutely gorgeous. Will I make that kind of art? No, I don't think so.
That's not who I am.
But I love that. So I think just expose yourself to all different kinds and something might hit in your brain.
Yeah, my name is not Steve Botticelli. We already had a Botticelli and he did really cool stuff. Yeah. But he did his stuff and I'm not supposed to be him.
Yeah, I love that. Well, as kind of a wrap up, what other advice, we've had a lot of good things said already, but what other advice do you have for high schoolers as they continue to make art and or like pursue art careers?
There's one I always tell my students, and it's be where your feet are. And there's 2 interpretations of that. One, literally be where your feet are. If wherever your feet are, be there. You're there for a reason. So if your feet are in art class, be in art class and give 100% to that. If your feet are at home doing homework, wherever your feet are, be there. You know what I'm saying? You're there, give it 100%. It also can be seen as be where your feet are in your career. Some of us have marched really far ahead simply because we're older and we've had 35 years to experiment. Don't compare yourself to where we're at, because we've had 35 years of messing up and experimenting, and we're who we are because we've been doing it for so long. So if you're starting off and you're in high school, just be happy where your feet are. Be in high school. You're just getting started, and that's beautiful. It's a great place to be, but don't look so far ahead. I want to be them. Be where your feet are. Be you. You will eventually become who you're going to become by taking all the little steps you take. And guess what? There are no shortcuts. I've never met a human being in the world who has found a shortcut in life. There aren't any. You have to just do a step at a time, and that's just the way it works. So take those steps happily and be where your feet are.
Yeah. And I would say, don't be scared of making mistakes or making something that you're not happy with, or I can't tell you how many things I painted over because things didn't mesh. I mean, I paint walls in my house all the time, and I've painted them colors that clash in such a horrible way that it's not good. So everything can be painted over, everything can be started over, or put it aside and walk away from that and do something else. I think don't feel like I've started this painting of a flower and it has to be perfect before I can move on to the next thing. I really feel like maybe have more than one thing going on at once, or try different things, and don't be scared of different things, I guess.
Yeah. And also go easy on yourself.
Yeah.
What you're doing came out of you, and we're always our own worst judges. We totally are. In fact, I'm so bad at judging if our paintings are good or not. Like, we'll do art shows, and you can bring 10 paintings. Okay, fine. So we'll debating. We'll pick the 10. And I'm just like, I don't really think that one should be here.
And it's always the first one that sells. I don't understand.
First one to sell every time is the one I don't want in the show. So what do I know?
Yeah.
So my point is, I don't know anything, but I do know how to make art, and I do it, and that's the important part.
Yeah, just do it. Just do it.
Go
don't
for
worry
it.
so much. Don't look at the people next to you. Just do your stuff.
Right. You may have someone next to you who's really quite talented at drawing or something, and don't be intimidated. Say, I'm happy for them. I'm so glad they're skilled at that, but look what I can do with color or whatever. You get the idea.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Steve and Tonya, for taking the time to talk with us today for Artist to Artist. We look forward to sharing this with lots of different teachers and students. So thanks again so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank
Cool.
you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.